Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to part 2 of our interview here with Dan. Really not an interview, but just really fun to hear a lot about the work that you're doing and some of the business stuff. I know last time we left off where we were feeling like there's so much more. Right. I think, Brent, you said that we were scratching the surface, right, and a lot more we can dive into. I thought the first topic we could just kind of start with that you touched on really early in our last interview was the concept of going into a trade immediately, like you started when you're 17, right off the bat, versus going into college. The specific question I have, would love to just hear your general thoughts, but the specific question I would love to know is if you're talking to a new guy who's going out, trying to go into the field that you're in, would you encourage him to follow in your footsteps or do anything differently?
Well, first off, I think it's a tragedy that anybody would think that being a carpenter or a craftsman is less than any other type of career. Mm-hmm. So I would absolutely encourage it. I think that we don't really have to look that far to see a lot of really successful carpenters, not just in our company, but lots of carpenters all across the nation. I know that if you were a young man who wanted to come to work for us, you certainly don't need a college degree to be successful as a carpenter, but that also doesn't mean that what you're doing is dumb. Right.
Good point. Yeah.
Like you will learn how to lay out complex geometry. You'll learn how to, you'll learn all kinds of things about the craft, like actually executing the craft, but you'll also learn about leadership, mm-hmm, and about working as a team and about leading crews. I mean, there's so much opportunity with all of that and skills that not only will help you in the craft, but whatever else you might choose afterwards. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't always see is that you can start out as a carpenter. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a carpenter when you're 50 either. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of different paths that it can branch out to. And in our case, you can start as a carpenter. We have a young man who has recently transitioned from a carpenter to an estimator. Mm-hmm. And he's actually been very successful in his transition because of his deep understanding about the trade. Mm-hmm. So he has gone from the field to the office, and from there, he'll have all kinds of other opportunity. He could become an engineer and work on shop drawings. He could become a project manager and start to run projects. He could go into accounting, and start working on the finance side.
Right.
And there's just so many other things, human resources, safety, logistics. There's all kinds of roles that are needed, yeah, in a company like ours. So
you just listed out about 8 degree specialties
right there. Yeah. Or you could stay as a carpenter and you could become a master carpenter.
Right.
And for us, any one of those roles has a roadmap and wage growth that's associated with it.
I don't think your company's alone in that either.
No.
I do think you're a lot more likely to be looked upon for a position within your own company than a new hire.
Right.
Speaking personally, I would rather promote from within.
Right. Right. And we would rather have people who learn the trade from the ground up as well.
Oh, totally.
But that doesn't mean that we aren't open to new people coming in, mm-hmm, at whatever level they are. So I would encourage, if you, for a lot of people, working with their hands is what they need, especially early on in their career.
Yeah.
And I know I needed it to a certain extent. I know a lot of other young men who need it and have thrived off of it. Mm. And it's not, there's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, there should be a pride of like what you can build with, mm-hmm, your own two hands.
There's a whole industry of jobs today, that if we had to go back 150 years, it wouldn't exist. There's something real about being able to, I always think about it. There's the zombie apocalypse. They're
What are the highest value jobs in that
we
scenario?
are. There's a book.
People who can build things.
There's a book called A World Made
guts.
by Hand, and it's basically a book about that. And he talks about the jobs that were there before and the jobs that aren't there now. And he goes and visits a government building, and the government guy is trying to move paper around and it just doesn't do anything. And he's actually, raised in the pecking order of society because he's actually doing something that's tangible and real. So
Yeah.
when you said, to do something is positive with your hands, to be able to build something, that's a big deal. And it matters.
And I'm, don't get it the wrong. Like, I'm not against college.
Right.
Sounds like
Okay. I'm not against college, but I am against a scenario where a young guy or girl goes to school because they don't know what else to do and ends up with a bunch of debt.
Yeah.
And when maybe they're better suited for learning a trade. And I know that with us, someone could come in, they could start early, they could hit the ground running, they could learn a lot. And in many cases, we have people who are earning more than what someone is earning in a white collar profession right out of college.
plus deficit.
Right.
Like plus they're not having the deficit of college.
Right. Exactly.
So I want to talk about some of your big jobs. I'm thinking of the guys out there that might have, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8 guys, right? That, wants to grow, wants to go after a big job, wants to kind of press himself. What are the challenges you think of? And I can think of some too, pay apps and cash flow and when you're going to get paid and things like that. What are some of the things that were, helped you kind of get over that hump from just a few guys to doing a really big job and the lessons you learned going through that? I'm thinking, let's give some advice, some practical advice to some guy of what he needs to think about when he wants to chase after that whale of a job.
Cash flow is a huge deal.
Huge.
Cash flow is very misunderstood. It's not the same thing as profit and loss. You could be making a profit on paper and be going broke at the same time.
Right.
So understanding how cash flow works and having good tools and maybe the help that you need to forecast your cash flow, forecast what's coming in, forecast what's going out so that you know whether you're going to have money in the bank 3 months from now.
Right.
That's huge. I can't underline that one enough. We invested very early on in a CFO to help us with that because I was clueless with that stuff. And I think if we had not had high level or professional help with our accounting, we would be dead.
Was he a full-time or part-time CFO?
Started out as part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually now today, there's actually a lot of services out there for part-time CFOs that are really affordable. Yeah. And I would counsel anybody who's wanting to grow to first invest in that. Like, don't even think about it. Don't think you can do it yourself. Bring in somebody who's a professional, and you will learn so much from that person. That will apply to how you bid, how you think about your costs, how you think about markups, how you think about job costing, and so many things that if you don't bring that person in to help you right away, it's just going to be lessons learned that you're going to learn the hard way down the road. Maybe not survive. Maybe not survive those lessons. Even with that, we had so many near-death experiences.
Yeah.
But cash flow, understanding cash flow and forecasting for cash flow would be a huge one.
So I think I know what we're talking about here, but just to see if I'm on the right page, when you're talking cash flow versus P&L, like profit and loss sheets, your profit and loss, you might be profitable on a job, but the job won't be completed for another 2 months. So
I'll
even
give
though
you
on the
an
balance
example.
sheet.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
You got a $100,000 contract.
Yeah.
And for commercial jobs, I don't know about your jobs, they may pay faster, but commercial jobs that especially if we're working for a county, we have to bill by the 20th, okay, for work that's going to be completed by the end of the month. And then ideally you get paid by the 10th of the following month, but that rarely happens. And sometimes that slips to the 20th, the Michigan County Commissioners Court meeting where they're supposed to review that and approve that. And it might be 45 days before you get your money, maybe even 60 days. Okay. So in the meantime, think about every week your guys want to get paid for their job, but you draw, let's say you start on the 1st and you've got 3 weeks of work in and you draw on the 20th, knowing that you're not going to get money, best case, until the 10th. So now you've been working for 40 days with no money. And every week your guys want money. And every week you got to pay for materials.
It's not just they want money, you're obligated to make payroll. And not just them, but also the government with the payroll taxes.
And so it's not an option. And so you're paying your guys every week, right? But you're not getting your money. That's cash flow, right? That you need to manage the cash, the flow of the cash until you get paid. And sometimes that can be with a bank. Sometimes that can be with, factoring. That can be with some other stuff. But
so essentially,
and what Brent is describing is one project.
Right.
Imagine that multiplied by 20 projects.
Right.
Where you need to forecast all of this incoming cash that's coming in at different rates of pay. Like 45 days for us is good. Actually, as an average. And then all of these outgoing expenses that could be more like going out weekly, right? You're getting paid every, once a month, that's on a 45 to 60 day lag from when you bill it. But then you have all these expenses going out weekly. And so you got to have a system for keeping track of that.
So does that look like creating a reservoir?
Spend all your cash before you receive the income.
Right. So kind of creating a buffer, knowing, hey, we've got 100,000 in the bank.
Well, you're mapping out your cash flow, right?
You're mapping it out.
You're mapping out, hey, but I'm getting paid. I won't get money for that job, but I'm getting money for this job. And then our cash balance is this much and our outgoing balance is this much. So we should be able to make it. But
I see why you need a CFO.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to do that on top of managing crews and estimating.
Well, and that goes to the second thing. So you got a bigger company, you're how you getting jobs, marketing and just making sure that if you hire 5 guys, you can keep them busy past that job you hired them for.
That's a big one. I think that's one that scares a lot of guys is like, man, let's say I have a 10-man crew.
Yeah.
And I put those guys on a job or 2 jobs or 3. Well, you need to make sure that there's another job after that or another handful of jobs to make sure that those guys are going right into the next work. And for us, a big part of our philosophy as a company is that every guy gets 40 hours worth of work every week of the year. We don't want to be one of those companies that's like, well, we don't really have anything this week.
We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we actually put a lot of energy into not only winning the work, because you can't overwin. Like you can win too much at one time and screw yourself in the process, or you can not have enough work, right? Either one of those are problems. But in order to do that well, you have to have a way of forecasting out how your current work looks against your capacity. So if, let's say you have 10 guys on your crew, that's a certain amount of man hours that you have to fill every month.
Yeah.
Right. And you need to be able to have a system that schedules out the upcoming work that you have under contract and allows you to see in which months you can take new work.
So if you're doing that practically, that's 10 people, 40 hours a week, that's 1,600 hours a month that you're trying to forecast out. When you're bidding jobs, because y'all are primarily install, correct?
We're provide and install.
Yeah.
But a big part, 50% of our business is field carpentry.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and then another 40% of our business is material sales.
Yeah.
And the last part is engineering.
Right.
Shop drawings and engineering.
So when you're bidding out those jobs in advance, is it one of those systems where you're like, hey, we will take your job, we got to wait 2 weeks before we've got the manpower to start it? Or
sometimes it is.
Will y'all be ready for us in 6 months? Because how far out are you guys planned?
We can see how our backlog spreads itself out over the future as far as it goes.
Okay.
So I can see that, like right now, I can see that in the month of April, I'm currently overbooked.
Okay.
And I'm underbooked in the month of November. I need work in that time period.
So what do you do?
Well, because of our knowledge of how this works, I know that April will likely smooth itself out, and that work will move back further into the year. But I know that we need to target the last quarter of the year for new work.
Yeah.
We need to be signing up work now that we will start to mobilize field crew on in the last
November.
part of the year.
So how many years in business do you think it was before your name and your reputation were strong enough that you could begin to count on work?
I remember in probably the first 3 or 4 years, I would keep a box of folders in my truck, like press kits. We had made these folders that had, like pictures
our
of work
work.
that we had
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
like a brochure.
Portfolio almost.
And every job site I saw, I'd stop at.
Really?
So probably hundreds, if not 1,000 or more jobs I'd stop at and cold call.
Wow.
And
And who are you talking to on those job sites? Homeowner or
Whoever
project
it would be the
manager?
builder. It'd usually be the builder.
Yeah.
There'd be a job trailer there, and I'd
sure.
knock on the door and, hey,
Yeah.
I'm just Dan Parish. And most of those were rejections.
Yeah.
But in fact, I stopped at this one project. It was this ginormous project, which I knew was way out of our league. And it was so big there was a tower crane on the job.
A residential project?
Residential project, yeah.
Wow.
And I stopped anyways, and I got quickly escorted out, like almost physically
Security,
kicked
security.
off the job.
You're making it big when you got security at a job project.
but the reason I bring it up is because it was so sweet when, like, it was about 3 years later, we got brought into that job to wrap up like the final little dregs of install because the
Wow.
other guy
That's
was
funny.
having a hard time finishing. I
Wow,
was like,
that is
hey,
a cool.
Remember me?
Yeah.
No.
Security guard. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But no, I cold called a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
A lot.
So-
And we networked like the ICAA.
Yeah.
We did a lot of networking there. I just like tried
I've
to
been
talk to
thinking
everyone
it
I
was
could.
probably 7-8 years before, your name was established. Is that an accurate thing? Maybe
Yeah, I
a
feel
little bit
like
faster than that?
there was a little bit of luck involved too, in that we started in 2007, which was right when the recession started, and whatever the business climate for our niche of the market was such that in 09 and 10 and 11, the builders were a little more open to new blood, and there was a lot of pressure on them for pricing, and we happened to be in there. Kind of underpricing everything,
Right.
not on purpose, but
Right.
but we were lower than the more established guys, and
Yeah.
and we had to mark the environment where people were open to it, and I was chasing everybody I could find,
Yeah.
put all those things together, and that kind of helped establish our name in the market.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we do have 2 other companies that are here as well. How long did it take you guys to establish a name for yourselves?
Probably for me, like 3 years to just really have the phone ringing consistently. Word of mouth, referrals. We did home and garden shows, just, portfolios, people walking by. Oh, yeah, I need some trim work, come on by.
Yeah.
Now it's at a point where, I still get so many calls and so many emails that I can't even keep up with them because we're
You get
staying
more
so busy.
incoming than what you
Oh,
need.
yeah. Yeah, so I would say 3 to 5 years to really be established. I think one of the questions I have for you is one of the common misconceptions that at least I've had is you always hear people say, keep it small, keep it all, or this other thing, when you have quantity of employees, you'll start to lose quality, like especially in carpentry. So I've had this misconception, like to do awesome skilled carpentry, you kind of got to be small, but you've just proven me wrong today, which I'm so glad you came. This is like free consulting for me because I'm like, wait, this guy's doing it. So what do you say to that misconception of like, well, if you want to do awesome jobs and not, lose on quality and grow, like how do you balance those?
I think that there's actually no right way. I think you just got to choose what you want. I think that you can be very successful financially and otherwise as a small outfit, and it is true that you have more control. Mm-hmm. If you are the owner and you are small enough to be working with your guys on a daily basis, and you really care about the craft, you're going to create a really tight, high-performing team.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think you can be very successful financially doing it that way too. One of the reasons that we are the size that we are, and one of the reasons why we want to be even bigger, is because a big part of what turns me on and some of the other leaders at Millworks is growing people. Mm-hmm. And we realize that we kind of have to have a thing that's always growing. If we want people to stick around and to build a career and to grow themselves, the thing needs to be bigger and it needs to be growing. Otherwise, people are going to cap out.
Right.
Get bored.
Yeah. And leave, find, like hit a ceiling where they can't go any higher and have to move on to someplace else. And that's not terrible that people move from company to company. Mm-hmm. It's not a terrible thing, but we it's really important to us that we have a place where people and craftsmen can grow and can grow their career over a long period of time with a lot of trajectory to it. So that's probably the biggest reason why
I love that.
We're growing.
I think that's awesome. Let's have some back and forth here. I mean, you're challenged in a good way, right? To maybe try to grow because you're seeing, hey, maybe I'm not, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could grow. What questions do you have for him? Do you sit there and go, yeah, but, or what are you thinking?
For me, I'm kind of like fired up to try it now. Like I've been in the same position for the past 10, 11 years now. Like I mentioned in the first podcast earlier, just seeing the other side that there is a higher calling for higher end stuff, and it makes me want to grow, really, like what you just said. I like to see people succeed. And
well, let me put it to you like this. I would say that what's going to happen is you just have to take a leap of faith and hire somebody, right? There's no like, yeah, you can read stuff and there's lots of ideas and stuff out there, but at the end of the day, you just gotta take the jump, and then what's going to happen is as you hire people, new problems come up, like new things that you have to solve. and I would say that is a craft. It's basically the same thing, that you get challenged with this new thing that Brent wants you to build, and it's like, whoa, how are we going to do this today? And then you figure it out, and it's the exact same thing that's going to happen as you grow your team.
There's a lot of fear in it. Like the thing you said about, if I hire someone, now I've got to have guaranteed work for this person because they're depending on me, their family's depending on me.
Yep.
So it's a lot of pressure that
it's like, how are you going to solve that problem?
Yeah,
how are you going to make sure that this is where a lot of our systems have come from? How are we going to make sure that every guy has 40 hours worth of work every week, all year?
Yeah.
How are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that we keep our guys employed?
It may be that, we've got some big jobs coming up, bigger than you can handle, and it could be something and we would love to have you on the job, but it could be a simple matter of what Dan's saying, just like, I need to solve this problem so that I can go do this work. And, if I could pick up two guys who could do, and I'm there to lead and they're there to, still have the quality, do more work. And, the first guy I hired, David White, I hired him because he knew how to do radius work at the Hill County Courthouse. I had these radius transoms. I didn't know how to do it. I was like, and
he was a solution in and of
he
himself.
was a solution in himself. And so he helped, when you said that, he did solve a problem, and helped us, move forward.
And he's still with you.
He's still with me.
That was the first guy you
The
hired?
first guy I hired.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the other aspect of it is like, just finding a job that is bigger than yourself too, probably, right? Like, would that be the step one?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because before I started working with you guys, it's like every job I got, like those emails that still pour in, it's a kind of job that's not enough for really more than one or two people. It's like those ones like wainscoting in a nursery, beams on a ceiling. So I guess, those are just homeowners coming to me. What kind of advice do you have for people trying to get involved with more higher end builders and like expanding their jobs in that regard versus just, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there like me who, and I know they are because I see them, they go from house to house just doing one-off jobs here and there. Like, how did you went and gave them your brochures and got escorted off and stuff? But
Persistence. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of like Brent is practically begging you to build a crew. Look,
Thank you for noticing that.
I think that builders really need the talent, but they also have a lot of risk. So they can't just they have to be fairly certain that they're hiring somebody who's going to come through. So persistence, you can't just ask a guy for a job one time and expect him to say, yeah, here's all my work, for going forward. Maybe try something small, see if he'll give you one room, something small as a test, like be okay with the test. And, but if you can find a way that you can show them what you got, and then they're going to
realize too,
keep
you
coming
don't
after
understand the challenges the builder is dealing with. And so sometimes on these big, huge jobs, I mean, with Dan's crews, it's probably not true, but I know that they're hiring 3 millwork firms,
Oh yeah. That's common on our projects.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're, for you to go in, well, they've already got somebody, you don't know what they've got, that persistence that Dan was talking about, and just, those could be discouraging things, continually being, turned down, but you're also shooting yourself in your foot if you say, well, they've got too many people. No. You don't understand the challenges that they're having. And, we're, for that big job that we've got out there at the ranch, when we do the big house, we're probably going to have 3 trim crews. So, I mean, there's plenty of work. And if you did ask for a room, it would be no problem.
Yeah. I remember the other day when we talked briefly, you were like, how's it going? Are we keeping you busy? I'm like, I can't keep up with it. Like, so that should have been a sign to maybe hire someone else. But I don't know.
Brent's been working on you all day about this, man.
I just can't find anyone who. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually had a situation where I cold called a builder. This is a long time ago, and they're still a client. Cold called a builder, and he flat out told me, "Nope, we've already hired somebody. Not here." And 3 days later, they called me back up and said, actually, why don't you come back out? And turned out they had hired somebody, but they were struggling with this guy. He wasn't showing up or whatever. And because I had stopped by, they were like, hey, that kid seemed like he was pretty hungry,
Yeah.
Maybe we should give him a shot. And we ended up getting the project, and we've worked for that builder ever since. I think we're going on like year 12 with that builder.
Wow.
So like what Brent was saying, don't, even if you get rejected, like you don't know what kind of issues they're dealing with or what's going on with their current sub base. It could be that they're a little scared to make the jump to a new one, but maybe in a couple days time or in the next month, they'll have enough pain to where they're like, yeah, remember that kid that showed up? He seemed like he seemed like he was wanting to do a good job. And I can't even get this guy to show up.
When they're
I've heard that. Well, the funny thing is I haven't even had the opportunity to be rejected because they've kept us so busy that I haven't had to even talk to anyone. But I called Well, actually, I met Andrew Bettis,
Bill Bettis.
his son, at the Building and Brew, and we've talked briefly, and he said the same exact thing. He said, "Can you come install this door over here for me?" But we had just started that window repair, and I was like, I just can't do it right now. He's like, a guy that we've been working with for years has just been giving us the runaround. Like, he's not showing up, just kind of sending people who don't know what they're doing. And he said that he's seeing a change right now in high-end trim carpentry, that like the good people are kind of like retiring and just kind of fading out.
Yep.
So it kind of looks like all the signs are
There's
pointing.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's opportunity.
Is there any fear, like this is where my head would be at, Richard, of bringing someone on who's just a total jackwagon, who you're like...
That's a big fear of mine.
Because then my thought was like, what if you used one of those, and this is fun because I'm the apprentice and don't know anything, but I'm like offering advice. What if you use those smaller job, like the smaller, like 2-person, 1-person, whatever jobs like
That's
that?
a good idea.
Where you would
That is
go
a
with
good
one
idea.
and then John goes with another one, and you bring 2 guys in who y'all train up personally.
Well, I mean, that's a genius idea.
Well,
For
I'm
the-
just the
for the
apprentice.
apprentice.
So
I mean, you just said you've got all these emails. I mean, talk about practice jobs where you could try a guy out, right? You've got these jobs that don't really matter. They're wainscoting a nursery
in your face, nursery owners.
and
New baby.
The
owners.
reality is you just because you hire somebody doesn't mean that you have to keep them employed.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're really clear with them at the beginning. You could say, I'm going to give you 2 weeks and you'll work with me. And if it's not a good fit, then we'll just say, we'll part ways.
No harm, just
Right. So it's
separate.
not necessarily signing yourself up for life,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah, have like a probationary period.
Right.
Because you are married
Now,
to your current...
You got to be
What's that?
cognizant.
You're married to your current coworker's sister, so there's
Yeah.
it's a
that
little,
situation might be different, but
You're fired.
you're locked in.
See you
with-
at Thanksgiving.
my point is that you have to treat people fairly, and you can't just you can't have the kind of philosophy where it's just hire and fire people at will, right? Or hire and fire because one day I need them and the next day I don't. Having a team is a commitment, but to get started, to find the right people, you can have a trial period where you try them out, and if it doesn't work, you can part ways.
Where do you usually find your employees? Just put out ads and stuff?
Well, right now, almost all of our incoming carpenters are referred by other carpenters.
Why don't you put an ad on your YouTube page? Say I'm
Yeah, you
Possibility.
probably have a
hiring.
huge pipeline.
You might get too many.
I know, that's the fear. Yeah.
I'm watching Richard
I know.
struggle.
Well, I'm just like,
This thing, I'm loving it.
I'm making a life decision live here. Well, the other thing you mentioned that I never really thought about this either, if I do hire more people, I might have time to focus on that more, which I've always thought the opposite way, but I'm sure there's some growing pains there before I get to that point, obviously. But yeah, I'm just...
One of the great things that Dan's done is he has built systems into his business and provides a real clarity, something that we don't do. I wish we did. As far as expectations, as far as a framework so that they can be successful. And the mistake I always made when I hired people was just go figure it out, and that is not the way to lead. Okay, that is not the way. And we grew to, I think we had 80 people working for us at one point, and it was a nightmare, right? Because I'm the vision guy, I'm kind of sales and dreamer. I'm not a systems guy and laying all that stuff out. But so what I would say is if you did want that time to do that, you need to, one thing that I'm envious of his is the system and framework that he's building for his guys, which is helps them to be successful. And of course gives him, makes him successful as well. So, but if you built that framework, I guess my point, those guys can and will be successful and would give you that time. But I don't think you're just hiring somebody and then, yeah, it worked out great. Yeah, he takes care of everything. The likelihood of finding that guy is like probably 1 in 30.
I think it's that fear It's just fear is all it is. It's like
Yeah.
you said, take a leap of faith, try it out, see if
So here's the thing I've learned about that, which is almost every decision you make can be unmade. And it's really easy to get paralyzed by, well, is it the right decision, and try to figure it all out to the nth degree. Sometimes it's better just to move forward, make the decision, knowing that if it doesn't work out, just undo it. Just stop doing it.
And you're lucky that if we hired you, you would have a lot of grace there. Just like, we'll figure it out.
it's inspiring.
I almost feel like, a lot of success is someone's ability to undo bad decisions quickly, more than their ability to make perfect or great decisions.
Yeah.
Because there's like if you're moving forward and you're making the decision, there's things that you learn in that experience, and almost everything can be undone. Like I've gotten myself into some really bad scrapes business wise, but almost everything can be dealt with. You can get out of it. And if you're talking about, just one or two additional people as a first step into that, do it. Just do it. See what you learn from it.
Yeah. And then I can always, not that that's the goal, but you're saying I can always just go back to the normal operation
Why
that
not?
I have now. Yeah.
You can survive a mistake. Just be clear with your team and your people about what you're doing.
The illusion is that bigger is better, right? And that I think it's an illusion. It was an illusion for me. Let me say it that way. And I had to right size myself and to a level that I could commit to, perform at, do what I said I was going to do. My brother-in-law one time told me, 90% of success is doing what you say you're going to do, right? You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be, but being honest and just doing what you say you're going to do is huge. And so anyway, a couple ideas in there, but just kind of finding the right size for you. I think outside looking in, it's, 3 to 5 guys for you. Maybe 2 crews, but definitely 1 firm crew that you could go out and perform our jobs and do our stuff. I don't see you having 20 guys and being this administrative oversight guy, but you've been in business with a good enough reputation, and with Bettis's and us and other contractors that you haven't even reached out to, you've got a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And this market needs good trim carpenters.
That's what I keep hearing. There's definitely a lot of potential.
Because Gary was saying that trim carpenters were the most important part of a job.
Well, everything, we just walked through that house.
Yeah.
Everything that is
Stuck
beautiful
out.
in there is carpentry, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm biased, but
Yeah, the whole house sucked.
Yeah,
but
no.
Trim carpentry was
no,
awesome.
everything is beautiful, but
So now that we're live, what's your decision?
I'm going to need that sheet, the test sheet, so I can start handing that out.
Yeah.
No,
I'd be happy to help however you want.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I think I'll go for it, actually.
That's
Let's
cool.
do it.
Game on. Hold him to it. Get in the comments.
Email Jackson Hole
Dan, what else for you? What do you what happens this year? You're building your team, kind of you're focusing on that this year. I love that statement that you're in the business of, would you say, building people? Or,
Yeah. One thing that I've really learned is I need to have a measured pace when it comes to growth, and like first things first kind of a thing. In other words, we have some things that we need to get in place before I push the growth much further. Things like some basic things like an ERP software system. The current one that we have is kind of bulging at the seams. We really need to get the carpentry or MBD University concept implemented and embedded and like moving, with momentum.
Who leads those charges? Is that you leading those, or is that you? Do you have a team that everybody?
I have a team. Yeah, I have a small team of people who report to me, and we work together with implementing those kinds of things. Yeah, and not just them, but also people under them as well. Like,
So do you feel like your primary role is kind of leadership? Is it sales? What do you do day to day now that?
my primary role is first and foremost leadership and structure of the organization, communication, key decisions. Also, I am trying to stay as close as I can to projects, so project managers and projects and clients, and I am spending a good chunk of my time this year in sales.
Does the company run without you?
Yeah. I mean, I could leave for a couple of weeks and everything would keep happening.
Could you leave for a year?
That's a good question. Maybe I'll try it next year. 2024. I have thought about taking my family to Europe for a couple months in 2024, and that might be a good test.
I've been challenged by a guy I'm meeting with, Mark Richardson. He's kind of consultant, help me out. And his thing is, your business isn't valuable until it can run without you. And I've been sitting there thinking, probably the millwork runs without me, but the building side doesn't. And so there are some 2-week, 3-week vacations I'm hoping to take, but don't know how it would work. But it's a challenge. It's you think about your business differently.
Yeah, I think we're on our way to that point, and because I think I have the people in place now that have that level of ownership. And there's a lot of things that are happening that require only a little bit of investment between me and the director under me who's making that happen, and then they multiply that amount of interaction into their teams, and things are happening through that interaction, and so that's really encouraging. And I definitely want to have the type of business where I don't have to be there for it to run, but this is still a trades business, and the contractors want to be able to talk to an owner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what I do, right? So it's not like I'm trying to go away for a year, but I would like a little less, the holding me down. Yeah.
It's a good question though, because it makes you kind of reverse engineer what it would take to do that. I mean, you've got all these systems in place.
Yeah. Reverse engineering is a good way to think about it.
Obviously mine is dead without me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just cool. All the different levels we have here and systems. I think your systems are what makes you successful. It seems like you have a very analytical mind.
Yeah. Kind of a nerd.
I've got a little bit of a pivot to a selfish question that I want to know. I asked these guys earlier, and I don't know if the episode's released yet, so stay on the lookout. But I asked what's a good starter tool set that you would recommend to someone who's looking at getting into finished carpentry. And so let's say I'm one of your level 1 employees. You give me my day one, my back to school list of what are the items I need.
Fill your backpack up.
Yeah, to bring in my backpack, my Power Rangers backpack day one.
Yeah. Well, we have a list of hand tools, like tools that you'd want to have in your vest or in your bags, like on your person.
Power Rangers backpack.
Definitely a good, your hammer, your chisels, sharp chisels.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Power tools, you're probably starting with a drill and an impact driver, jigsaw.
Okay.
Maybe a router. Router's probably down the road a little bit.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to get a lot done without a chop saw.
Right.
So, a chop saw and a small table saw is probably something you want to get early on.
Okay.
Like you really can't get that far without some saws, right?
Mm-hmm. And would y'all provide some table saws on the job site, or would it be better if, and chop saw probably too? Yeah.
Our program is we provide large tools.
Okay.
So we provide We'll provide track saws, door mortisers, table saws,
Okay.
planers, things like that.
Yeah.
Our carpenters provide the rest of the tools.
Mm-hmm.
But we do provide a rebate program to kind of help guys out
Yeah.
and invest in their tools.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea. Well, those are some very helpful first set of tools. The one that I'm missing right now is chisels. I think that's the gap in my
Do you have a favorite
arsenal
chisel?
right now.
You know what? It's been a long time since I've used a chisel. Truth
How
be
long
told.
has it been?
Years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Same with you, right?
Yeah, there's some when going back out and doing the videos and working out there has been great, and it's been fun, relaxing, getting back into working with my hands. But I had to restock up. Somehow all my chisels were gone and all my tools were gone, so I had to restock.
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I was kind of old school when I had the Marples chisels
that's what
with the blue handles, and I was lucky enough to have Jed Dixon teach me how to sharpen a chisel, like really sharpen a chisel. And
that was one of the first things we did at North Bennett Street is learn how to sharpen tools.
Oh man, yeah.
He said, you know how good a carpenter is by how sharp his chisels are.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of truth to
after
that.
I think Gary and I both ran into Jed about and started learning about sharpening chisels about the same time.
Yeah.
And it made such a difference, like just with your craftsmanship, to have truly sharp chisels. And after that, it was like you better be able to shave some arm hair off with it, or it's not sharp enough.
Wow.
Do you do it on a stone, like a wet stone?
Yeah, we did it on a wet stone and then finished it with a leather strap.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's cool. I know earlier you said you provide the big machines, like the saws. You provide the table saw, miter saw, anything else?
Table saws. We don't provide miter saws.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys are providing their own miter saws.
And then dust collection you provide?
Yes.
And then any small joiners or planers, that would be you.
Yeah. Or things like track saws. We have some track saws, and we have some door mortisers, and things that are kind of oddball and also expensive that a guy may not use all the time.
Right.
We get.
So you said
and our general policy is like, if there's a tool out there that you don't have and we don't have that's going to obviously make this job easier, go get it.
Yeah.
We'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all getting the right tool is always cheaper than somebody trying to do it with the wrong tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It could save you hours just having the right
Totally.
setup.
Sure.
Yeah.
You said you have saw stops on your jobs. Has any guy ever set one off?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What is a saw stop?
Well, a saw stop is those. It's a table saw brand that has a mechanism inside of it that senses when the blade is touching flesh.
Oh wow!
And it will stop the blade.
It throws this plastic thing up into the blade whenever it touches it, and there's examples of them like taking a hot dog wiener and putting it in there, and it just barely cuts it. Bang!
I don't know if I'd trust the company that doesn't use a real.
No, I think the owner, the inventor did it.
They have had people really do it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of trust in your product right there.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think we have had maybe 2 trips that were actual fingers. Most of the trips are when when the board is a little bit too wet.
Yeah,
or there's a little bit of metal, like it hits a nail or something.
Wet glue joint, and they would knock it off. It kind of drove us crazy.
Yeah,
because it's expensive to reset it, right?
It's like it's like a couple $100 to reset it and time.
Mm-hmm. So it puts it out of commission. It
takes the blade out. It kills the blade, puts the saw out of commission.
Got it.
Yeah, but we stock extra cartridges, and to us. So here's another big thing about a larger crew is that safety is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to keep a small crew on the same page about safety, but we learned the hard way with a couple years of a lot of injuries that we had to really take it seriously.
Yeah.
And like so seriously that we had to make it a core value of the company. Mm-hmm. That part of our job is to take care of our people.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of the saw stop thing is like we're just not gonna
risk it. Yeah.
We're not gonna risk it.
So is a safety glasses? Are you requiring like steel toe boots or anything like that?
We require work boots. So we're more after ankle support than steel. We don't require steel. In some cases, steel's more dangerous. Our whole thing is that we want our safety program to be practical and relevant to our trade, because a lot of the safety literature that's out there just feels gimmicky and like too much. You know, like no one's going to show up to the job site dressed all in orange.
Yeah.
You know, so
great point.
So we do require work boots, and we require glasses when someone is doing a task that has dust or has particles, and we have other rules as well. But we try to keep it really relevant and really practical to what we're actually doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, carpenters are the ones usually who are missing fingers and stuff. So it's like.
But going to the cash flow thing, if you're a large company and you have a lot of injuries, the cost of your workers' comp insurance is going to be astronomical, and it could put you out of business.
That's crazy.
Where on the flip side of that is if you have a really good record where you have very low injuries, your workers' comp insurance can be even less expensive than market price.
Wow.
So there's an offset there.
That's awesome,
dude. It's been awesome having you here.
Yeah,
this has really been great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming into town. It's fun showing you around, and
it's awesome seeing your jobs too.
Great insight.
Yeah,
great insight.
A lot of the fun insight takeaways for me is just it was a lot of practical business application on top of really practical carpentry knowledge, which made it I think really helpful and really insightful. So it was really cool.
Yeah,
you definitely motivated me to explore other options of the way I'm running stuff. And like you said, you translated that Brent is asking me to to hire more people.
I'll be following up in 6 months to make sure you hired a few guys.
That'd be awesome. Seriously, that's cool.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate talking to you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Really awesome connecting with you again, Brent, because
it's been too long.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, Dan Parish, everyone. Thanks for watching the Passion for Craft podcast. Your company, once again, is
Millworks by Design.
Millworks by Design. So be looking for the Millworks by Design University.
There you go.
If you want to learn something.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you next time.